following resolution, and whereas Resolution 25-05 approved a contract for legal services with Christopher B. Greville and the Greville Law Firm to serve as interim outside counsel of the board, and whereas the board desires to make Christopher B. Greville and the Greville Law Firm the outside general counsel of the board and remove their interim status. Be resolved that Christopher B. Greville and the law firm are named as outside general counsel of the board.
Thank you. The resolution has been read. We're looking for a motion to approve the resolution.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution.
I'll second. So motion made by Commissioner Jenkins Gray, second by Commissioner Ortega. We'll move to discussion regarding taking the interim title off of the Greville Law Firm. Any discussion regarding this? Seeing no discussion, we'll call for a roll call vote.
Commissioner Saraceno?
Aye.
Commissioner Jenkins Gray?
Aye.
Commissioner Ortega?
Aye.
Commissioner McVeigh?
Aye.
Commissioner Spencer?
Present.
Motion carries. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay. Very good. We'll move to agenda item D regarding the agreements that we are considering today. Mr. Sullivan with the Budget and Finance is here to answer questions. We will discuss each of these agreements, and then at the end we will consider a resolution authorizing all the contracts.
The first is
Mr. Sullivan. Thank you.
The first is a grant contract with the DEA. They provide $21,744 for 5 detectives, maximum for each federal fiscal year. No impact on the general fund budget at all. The second is a grant we received. We're a subrecipient through Greater St. Louis Inc. It's $1,250,000. It's going to provide security upgrades for downtown St. Louis. No impact on the general fund at all. And the last one is with Regis. It's a master agreement that covers all the services they provide for us. It's a 2-year contract. It's a total of $401,020. It was budgeted for and was approved in the last budget.
Any questions on any of those contracts? Commissioner Spencer, who would read the resolution for us? Any other further discussions regarding the resolutions read by Mr. Sullivan? Any other questions from Mr. Sullivan? We'll move for a vote of the resolution.
Commissioner Saraceno?
Aye.
Commissioner Jenkins Gray?
Aye.
Commissioner Ortega?
Aye.
Commissioner McVeigh?
Aye.
Mayor Spencer?
Aye.
Motion approved. We'll now move to the next agenda. Mr. Greville, it's on the agenda item as state audit. Mr. Greville, would you please address the board on this item?
Yes, as you will see in your packet, we received a letter from the state auditor. We do have the state auditor here today that I'm sure that I think you guys want to come up and introduce yourself up at the podium and your team, and they're here to answer any questions. We've already had some conversations with them about what exactly it is and whatnot, why they're here. We are a state agency now, so it is a service provided by the state, I guess is an accurate way to say it, Kelly. So without further ado.
Very generous way of describing it. Good morning. Thank you for having us, board. My name is Kelly Davis. I'm an audit director with the state auditor's office. With me is James Kaiser, who is our audit manager for this, and Sarah Woodman, who will be our auditor in charge. So we're here to entrance an audit of the board and the police department. So the purpose of the meeting is really just to introduce ourselves, explain our general procedures, and then if there's any questions that we can handle here, or we passed out our contact information. So if anybody has any questions, concerns, they can direct those to us. So just to give an idea of what the audit process is going to be, for those of you who have not been through the audit process, we'll start with here's the insurance conference. We're going to meet with the board as the governing body over the police department, and then we'll meet with key officials. Would like to meet with the chief at some point, and then any other key officials in the department. Then we go on to our field work stage, where we gather records, review records. We start with a survey period where here we're going to take kind of a broad look, and I usually say a shallow look, to kind of understand the operations of the department, and then focus our work to where it is we consider the most risk, most significant. We found an audit of what we're projecting the size of this to be, usually takes about a year. Again, throughout that process, that's not the fieldwork process, so we will not be like in-house for a year. That'll be the entire report process, going back and forth with all of those findings. If we change our scope or anything significant comes up, it may take longer. We will notify all of those who are doing the work what our timeline is looking like. I've shared with you, this is my third time auditing the police department in my career. So that's kind of what we're basing our time frame on, is how long it's taken in the past. But things have significantly changed since the last time we were here. So,
Which was when?
We released report in 2020, I believe. And then before that, I was here and we released report in 2010.
Can you share with us what provoked or initiated the audit? What was the trigger of that?
I think it just this transition into now we have the authority, and then to consider it. When it was previously under state control, we periodically audited the department, and so again with the state control, it became an area of interest.
So nothing particular happened to initiate?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Good. Our next item on the agenda is number 8, the Chief's Report. Chief Tracy, welcome. Happy New Year. Good to see you.
Really proud of the men and women of the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department, as well as the civilian professionals that we have, and working with the community, working with the elected officials, working with this board, and especially working with the team. The numbers that I'm going to talk about here, this was a collective effort of a lot of people to get where we are. We can't do it by ourselves in the police department, and that's why you have to have a team. And then we continue the good work with the administration, and the mayor has a public safety office and a lot of support units that work together with us to help drive down some of this crime. And what I'm going to talk about is progress. It's progress right now, and we got so much more work to do. But, you know, these numbers are going in the right direction. And, you know, we know we're down in personnel, but we're down well below where our budget strength is. Those are things that we're going to continue to work on. Those are the things that we need. I think our biggest challenge, if we can build off this progress, our biggest challenge is to make sure we get more police officers into this profession. We are bringing people in. We are filling up the academies. We have 26 officers that are in the academy right now. 26 recruits. And we just graduated 14 a couple of weeks ago. And we're going to continue to do that, and I know we're working with Sarah Koziaki as far as how we can streamline those efforts and our recruitment efforts to bring people in. But I also think it's going to be about, we're doing everything we can, and this patch that we wear on our shoulders is one of the main drivers, even though we're in the bottom third of departments being paid in this region as far as pay. And I think this patch is the one thing that makes us overcome that. But if we can become competitive, we're in contract talks now. If we can bring a competitive salary up and make us competitive all the way up to the rank and file, I think the work that we're doing now, we can do so much better when we can get more personnel out there. And the biggest thing that I hear from the community is we see crime going down. The mayor talked about it yesterday. We talked about it at the U.S. State Olympic trials, that we're going to have a great thing in the next few days and starting tonight. But omnipresence, that's what people talk about. They want to see more officers on the street. And the only way we're going to do it is a combination of things that I just talked about. And salary is big, and starting salary is big. If you take a look at our recruitment team goes out there, and when they're going out, they can talk about all the things we can do from aviation, K-9, homicide, all these specialized units, SWAT, that they can't offer. But we can have, they all put up their salary on their table that competes against everything we do. And hopefully we can rectify that within these budgets, find that money, and I think that is the place that is our biggest challenge right now, because they're doing great work. They're doing, we're doing this surgical, we're doing these things, but at a certain time, we have to change that momentum and bring officers in. We're doing this, we're doing this by piecemeal. We're doing it very good, and these officers are doing a tremendous job. I think some of the things we talked about, paper clips and gum, just trying to hold this together. But that's a testament to the men and women and how much they care. I also celebrate the officers that stay. Less and less officers are leaving. 42 officers have come back that have left our jurisdiction and went to other jurisdictions, and they've come back and we've sworn them back in. That shows that they want to work here, and some of them are left larger salaries, but the morale is coming up, the union's there, we got things going, and we also have a very good circuit attorney that's in place that's holding people accountable when we make these arrests. So where are we at right now at the end of 2025? We finished with 140 murders. I hate to start with murders, but certainly that's what we get measured on. That's down 7% from where we were last year, where we had 151 murders. It's down 13% from where we were 2 years ago, which was 2023, where we had 160 murders. It's down 30% from where we were in 2022, where we had 200 murders. And it's down 31% from 2021, where we had 203. And in 2020, we had 263 murders. We're down 47% from where we were 5 years ago. This is progress. It's certainly, and I talk about things with, there's a study out there by Grand Study about what it does to the city when you have more murders or how you reduce murders. For every murder that happens, it costs the city about $5 million. $5 million. And that's from court cases, overtime, police, damage to the community, tourism, hospital, and the trauma effect on tourism. And so when you think about coming from 263, but I like to use 2022 as a baseline, because 2022 is where crime went up from 2021 to 2022, and now it's gone down steadily the last 3 years. We also have the CompStat methodology, and we had accountability systems in here, but I kind of use something that I've learned in New York, brought to Chicago, Wilmington, and now we have here in St. Louis. So when you take a look at those numbers, you come down from 200, that's 60 less murders, and you want to do the math on it for $5 million, right? How much is the city saving to try to bring up tourism and everything else? It's almost $1 million for every non-fatal shooting. So let's talk about non-fatal shootings. Let's talk about leveraging technology. Let's talk about NIDIN, crime gun intelligence, great work clearances by the homicide squads, 85% homicide clearance rate. If we talk about those, we're down 170 less shooting victims from last year. Is that the 28th number? You're doing
This is December 28th.
December 28th. I actually have the three days in advance going year to year. This finished 3 days early. Very close to what I'm talking about. So the numbers are really not going to change that much. But 170 shooting victims. That's $1 million per shooting victim by a RAND study, an independent study, and there's several studies out there to do that. Let's go back to 2022. We're down 317 shooting victims in 2022. These are real lives. These are people that we're saving by the good work that the men and women, I told you, also the civilian staff that we're doing. We're down 53 versus 63 in juvenile shooting incidents, down 16%. If you go back to 2022, we're down 65, and that's a 55% reduction in juveniles and in shooting incidents. That's huge. Those are a lot of things that we put in place, working with the juvenile justice system, working with the judge, and those things, and having MOUs in place. It's not perfect. You hear people talk about the points. You hear about kids getting back out, but we're working on those things. We're better than where we used to be. And overall crime, for finishing the year, we're down 16% down in every category. And I talk about Part 1 crimes: murder, sexual assault, robbery, aggravated assault, burglary, felony theft, and auto theft. That's Part 1 FBI UCR crimes, which comes right out of the NIBR system, the National Incident-Based Reporting System. So it's extrapolated out. There's two systems out there, but they're the same numbers, measuring numbers. I extrapolate these numbers out so we can measure them and look at patterns and trends, and to make sure our officers are looking in the right places. This is broken down by district, patrol area, and then also neighborhood. Then, if you go to 2022, we are down 42% from where we were 3 years ago. Down in every category: 30% homicide, 39% rape, 28% robbery, 20% in aggravated assault, 21% in burglary, 48% in felony theft, and 56% in auto theft. We've come a long way in the last 3 years, and we're going to continue to work on these numbers. But I think if we get more officers on the street, we have a recruitment campaign, and we get better pay for our officers, we can recruit, we can get those officers, we get back up to budget and strength. We can work off the system that I believe will be on steroids to make sure we can make better progress in the city, on top of the great progress we're making right now.
Chief, I just want to, the numbers are just phenomenal. I know I've said it before, but to continue the downward trend on crime in such a significant manner year after year is really impressive. And I want to commend your officers, not only on all that work, but some of the communications. I know Mitch, Sergeant Mazzola, crediting some of the community members for coming out and working with the police department to share the vital information that you all need to make the cases before our prosecuting attorney continues to build that trust and that apparatus of sharing information with the police department. It's really helpful and it's appreciated. One thing that came up over the last, over the last couple of weeks, there was an enormous uptick in gunfire on New Year's Eve. And, I know that the police department can't prevent people from shooting off guns. I mean, it's so widespread. What can we do, but just to touch on that, what can we be doing to support? I know there's been a lot of chatter about it, and so I just want to give you an opportunity to talk about it.
Right. Well, I think every year it's as much as when you lead up to New Year's Eve and the celebratory gunfire comes out. Even though you're expecting it, it is shocking when it starts to happen, and even it's within the vicinity. Every city that I've been in, celebratory gunfire, even with the type of laws that we have in place of who can carry a gun in this state. In other states where it's illegal unless you have a permit, we still have the same issues. Our officers got to continue to stay on it. What we continue to do when they are shooting those guns, in the past, there was so much gunfire we were not collecting the shell casings. In the last couple of years, it takes 2 or 3 days to go back and collect all the shell casings, and then I've asked my lab to do an impossible task to actually try to correlate those shell casings, because they're going to come back to individuals that are coming back to other crimes. They help us solve some of these crimes, and especially when it comes to the homicide and non-fatal shooting detectives. I think we got to stay on top of it. I will say, since we've been collecting shell casings and turning around, doing a correlation 3 days a week in the executive management meetings, getting those clues, breaking down the silos, and every investigator from the police officer down are on top of these things and doing more and more collection. Our amount of shots fired incidents in the last 3 years, because we're leveraging crime gun intelligence and we're picking up the shell casings more and more, the officers understand that we were basically picking up shell casings on a non-fatal shooting or a homicide. Now we're picking them up anytime we can find them, even on celebratory gunfire. When that goes into the library, and then even the people on the street, when we start doing a quick canvas and everything, even the bad guys or the people who are doing celebratory gunfire, that changes their behavior. And we're down a few thousand shots fired calls a year now. We're measuring that. Although this year was a little higher than we were last year, I think it was higher. I have to do a better analysis, but we got to remember that we actually increased in Dutchtown. We put a new shot spotter area in. So the phone calls didn't come in, but ShotSpotter picked them up. So therefore, it increased our ShotSpotter numbers because it wasn't a ShotSpotter territory. So where people wouldn't have called in, that is picked up. But I wouldn't say anecdotally. I took a quick look. I'm still measuring it, but I still think there was more this year than there was last year. You're absolutely right. And what the people were feeling out there is absolutely true. So every week we do a gun staff within a comm staff. And we take every gun arrest that's being made by our officers, which is an armed confrontation. And in the past, we'd say, well, everybody's allowed to have a gun. No, if you're a convicted felon, and if you're being released on your own recognizance, we're working with the circuit attorney, who has a person embedded, their head of the supervisors of the warrant offices with us, to look at every single case, and then we're looking to see who adopts the case with the U.S. attorney that's with us. We might have been doing it periodically, but we were doing it consistently. And we're doing that, and we're sending a message. It's a privilege to carry a gun in the state of Missouri, but it's not a right if you're going to use it the wrong way. And I'm going to make sure with the rest of the criminal justice system, and I make the phone calls over if they did not charge or they released the person, and then also, I'm also speaking with the judges to find out why they released the person on their own reconnaissance if they were a convicted felon. And because that's a no-go. So we shouldn't be overlooking that, because the decisions they make not holding people accountable to think they can go right back on the street and do the behavior that we saw in celebratory gunfire and other instances. So there's a lot of things we got to do working with our partners. I promise you we're going to continue to do that. But I believe there was more this year than last year, and I think the public perception is right. We're going to have to continue to take a look at that, keep putting our messaging out, and then some of those shell casings might come back to the individual that's shooting. We're going to hold them accountable.
And just probably not an unpopular statement I'll make, but I will. I think you and the mayor do a good job of messaging, so I think being proactive on the messaging and maybe seeing if we can get some funding to get it out on the social media news. And I know you have done it, but I don't think you can ever get the message out that it's not okay to do that, because, you know, we can continue to work. That's a good thing to be proactive about as we come down through the New Year's and all that, is getting that message out. Instead of being reactive a little bit, we're more proactive on the messaging part of it. Not that we've done it bad, I'm not saying that, but I do believe that you hold a good presence of being able to communicate that, Chief, and Mayor Spencer too. So I think your words would be very encouraging.
And Mayor, yesterday when you were at the press conference, we had a short time to speak. We talked about the safety downtown. They asked those questions. How do we put additional people down for these events? Well, we're always putting additional people down for almost every major event. There's sometimes a concert, 2 major sporting events, a stifle, and you get something going on at your home. And we're having incredible events. We're having a lot of great feedback for the work that we're doing. But we don't abandon the rest of the city. And you can see that by the crime stats that we have. And then even I brought up the year 3 tornado. I said, hey, we were still able to cover the city this year. We got to remember, we're talking about end of the year right now. But the tremendous work that you and your team, your leadership, mayor, and then also police, fire, and first responders had to do. And we had to stay a little longer as far as a first responder in those areas to make sure those people felt safe. And we did 12-hour tours. And these men and women of the police department, they were out there for months doing that. And I want to congratulate them on doing that and then holding the rest of the city down. Everybody goes, what about the neighborhoods when we do things downtown? We're never going to sacrifice the neighborhoods for anything we do downtown. And then with that, if you look at from where we were 3 years ago, downtown, we're down about 55% in overall crime. Downtown West, which is Union Station, actually is headquarters, and also we have another stadium with the soccer team across the street. We're down about 54%. And if you go down to the corridor that goes down, Midtown, I apologize to Midtown, because we're only down 37% in 3 years. And then if you go down Central West End, we're down over 50%. They are getting the work done. Perception takes a long time to catch up to reality, and that's something we got to work in the messaging. President, you talked about, and people are skeptical, as they should be. We got to keep sustaining it. And I think I'm going to go 360. It's the omnipresence again. More officers out in the street and recruiting officers and get back to the budget and straight.
The Good Samaritan law, that was something, we were the first city in the United States to be a city Good Samaritan city, and the state followed suit about a year or 2 after that, and so the impetus behind that was to make sure that when somebody was experiencing a medical emergency as a result of drug use, an overdose, that the folks around could call the police with immunity and not feel that they were at risk of being arrested for drugs. And we wanted to save lives and really focus on making sure that we weren't losing lives. I mean, that's the whole point of I would say, law enforcement, is to protect people, and this was a way to do that proactively.
We look.
Thanks.